first thing they tell you after spinal surgery is to stay still. Don't twist. Don't lift anything heavier than a coffee cup. Don't drive. For the love of God, don't bend forward more than 30 degrees. So when the police showed up at my door 3 weeks into my recovery, asking about my recent trip across Ontario to follow and harass my ex-wife, I actually laughed. Then the movement sent a bolt of pain down my left leg that made me grab the doorframe and nearly collapse. "Mr. Patterson?" the younger officer asked, his hand moving instinctively toward me before he caught himself. "Are you all right?" I wasn't. I was wearing the same gray sweatpants I'd been living in for weeks. There was a heating pad dangling from my lower back by its cord, and I hadn't showered in 3 days because getting in and out of the tub required assistance from my sister. But that wasn't what he was asking about. "Spinal fusion," I managed, straightening up as much as I could. "L4, L5, 3 weeks ago. What's this about following someone?" The older officer, a woman with steel-gray hair and eyes that had clearly seen too much, pulled out a notebook. "Your ex-wife, Jennifer Patterson." "Lawson," I corrected. She took her maiden name back. "Jennifer Lawson filed a report yesterday claiming you've been following her across the province. She says she saw your vehicle in Ottawa 2 weeks ago, then in Kingston, and most recently in Thunder Bay last weekend. She has photographs." I stared at them. Thunder Bay was a 14-hour drive away. I'd spent last weekend exactly where I'd spent every weekend since the surgery, on my couch, watching my nephew's hockey games on my laptop because I couldn't sit in arena bleachers, and texting my physiotherapist increasingly desperate questions about whether this level of pain was normal. "I haven't left this apartment in 3 weeks, I said. "I physically can't. I can barely make it to the bathroom." The younger officer shifted uncomfortably. "Sir, she has photos of your truck, a 2019 silver Dodge Ram, license plate BGKM 847. My truck, which was currently sitting in my sister's driveway in Mississauga because I couldn't drive it, because my surgeon had been very, very clear about the 6-week driving ban." "Come in," I said, stepping back carefully, one hand on the wall. "Please come in and let me show you something." They followed me into my apartment, and I could feel their eyes taking in the evidence of my immobility. The walker folded by the couch, the reacher-grabber tool on the coffee table, the pile of pill bottles, the medical brace draped over a chair. I lowered myself onto the couch with all the grace of an elderly man. I was 42 and reached for my phone. "This is my sister Sarah," I said, pulling up her contact. I put it on speaker as it rang. "Jamie, what's wrong? Is it the pain? Do you need me to?" "Sarah, I'm fine. I have 2 police officers here. Can you tell them where my truck is?" There was a pause. "Your truck? It's in my driveway where it's been since your surgery. Why are the police, Jamie? What's happening?" The older officer leaned forward. "Ma'am, this is Officer Chen with Peel Regional Police. Can you confirm that your brother's vehicle has been in your possession for the past 3 weeks?" "Yes, absolutely. I drove him to the hospital for his surgery on December 28th, and we came back to my place because he needed help. He stayed with me for a week, then we got him back to his apartment, but he left the truck with me because he can't drive. It hasn't moved. My husband has been parking behind it. It's completely blocked in." I watched the officers exchange a glance. The younger one was typing something into his phone. "Can anyone else access your brother's vehicle?" Officer Chen asked. "Well, no, I have the keys. They're hanging in my kitchen right now." After I ended the call, I pulled up my medical records on my phone, the discharge papers from the hospital, the prescription records showing exactly when and where I'd filled them, the post-op appointment scheduled for next week. Then I opened my bank statements. "Look," I said, scrolling through. Uber Eats, grocery delivery, physiotherapist appointment which I got driven to, pharmacy delivery. There's no gas stations, no hotels, no restaurants outside of delivery radius. I haven't been anywhere." Officer Chen was studying my face now, not with suspicion but with something that looked like pity. "Mr. Patterson, how long have you and Ms. Lawson been divorced?" "Finalized 8 months ago, but we separated a year and a half ago." "And has there been any conflict since then?" I hesitated. This was where it got complicated. Jennifer got the house. I got a payout for my half, but it was less than market value because she argued she needed stability for our daughter. Then 2 months ago she put it on the market and sold it for $200,000 more than we'd agreed it was worth. When I asked my lawyer about it, she said I might have a case to reopen the settlement. The younger officer stopped typing. "Let me guess," Officer Chen said quietly, You filed something with the court recently. My lawyer sent a letter 3 weeks ago, right before my surgery. Actually, the timing hit me then. She got it right before I went under the knife. We sat in silence for a moment. Outside my window, I could hear kids shouting, playing in the January snow that I couldn't walk through even if I wanted to. The photos, I said, can I see them? Officer Chen pulled out her phone and scrolled through several images. There was my truck, or a truck that looked exactly like mine, photographed from a distance in various parking lots. The license plate was clear in 2 of the photos, BGKM 847. But something was off. That's not my truck, I said, zooming in on one image. Sir, the license plate. Look at the bed, I pointed. My truck has a spray-in bedliner. It's black. This one's bare metal, and see that scratch on the driver's side door? Mine doesn't have that. Someone's cloned my plates. The younger officer took the phone and examined it closely. He's right, there are differences. Officer Chen sat back, her expression hardening in a way that made me think this wasn't her first time dealing with false accusations. Mr. Patterson, do you know anyone who might want to impersonate your vehicle? And that's when another piece clicked into place. Her boyfriend? I said. Jennifer's been seeing someone for about 6 months, Mark something, I don't know his last name, but my daughter mentioned a few months ago that he also drives a silver Dodge Ram. She thought it was funny, like he was trying to replace me. The officers left shortly after, promising to investigate further. Officer Chen told me they'd be checking the VIN numbers in Jennifer's photos if they could find them, talking to witnesses and verifying my alibi through medical records and my sister's testimony. She also suggested gently that I might want to call my lawyer. I called Sarah first. She did what? My sister's voice could have shattered glass. She accused you of stalking her while you were lying on my couch asking me to help you put on socks. I think she's trying to build a harassment case to counter the settlement dispute. That's insane. That's actually insane. I could hear her packing. Jamie, you literally cried last week because you dropped the remote and couldn't bend down to pick it up. You can barely walk to the mailbox. She wasn't wrong. The surgery had been necessary. Years of construction work had compressed my spine to the point where I was losing feeling in my left leg, but the recovery was brutal. I'd lost 15 pounds because I couldn't stand long enough to cook. I needed help with basic tasks. The idea that I'd somehow driven across Ontario, tracking Jennifer's movements, while dealing with post-surgical pain that still woke me up at night was absurd. But it was also terrifying, because false accusations can stick. Because accused of stalking sounds damning even when while physically incapacitated comes after it. Because I had a daughter who might hear these things and wonder just for a moment if her father was capable of such behavior. I called my lawyer next, then my daughter's school to give them a heads up in case Jennifer tried to modify our custody arrangement. Then I sat on my couch, heating pad pressed against my back, and thought about how the person I'd once loved enough to marry was now willing to accuse me of crimes I couldn't physically commit. The truth came out eventually. It took 2 weeks, but Officer Chen called to tell me they'd tracked down the other silver Dodge Ram. It belonged to Mark Hendricks, Jennifer's boyfriend. He'd apparently cloned my plates after Jennifer showed him photos of my truck, thinking it would be untraceable. They'd driven to various cities where Jennifer had work conferences, staged the photos, and filed the report. Both were charged with mischief and public mischief. My lawyer assured me the false accusation would strengthen my case for reopening the settlement. But the thing that stayed with me long after my spine healed and I could finally drive my own truck again was simpler. I'd learned that recovery from surgery, from divorce, from betrayal takes longer than you think. That sometimes the pain lingers even after the bones fuse, and that the truth, like healing, can't be rushed, but it's worth waiting for. My daughter called me 3 months later after I'd finally been cleared to return to work. Dad, she said, I'm sorry I didn't call sooner. I needed time to process, but I never believed it. Not really, I know you. And maybe that was enough.